Good afternoon. I'm Andy Taylor, the East Central Regional Ministry Partner for Oklahoma Baptist, the state convention for Oklahoma. And today I'm going to present this 5-year leadership development process to the leadership team of our state convention as we seek to adopt a new program for our pastors. We previously had a program called Ministry Pipeline. 2.5 years ago, when I took this job, our executive director, Dr. Todd Fisher, asked me to revamp the program as we really needed to provide some structure. As pastors, we had young pastors who were meeting with a seasoned pastor in different geographical locations across the state. The program just didn't take off and didn't achieve what we were hoping it would do, and we really didn't give it enough structure. So I'm hoping that this 5-year plan will give us sufficient structure and yet enough flexibility that we'll be able to utilize this and see pastors developing skills that we have specifically identified as gaps for them over a broad spectrum of pastors that we've talked to. So I'll present to you first of all the content, and then we'll look at the format. In this 5-year program, we first are going to look at, in year 1, we're going to look at pastoral identity. Each year is broken up into 2 separate modules. A module will run from January to May, and then a second one from August to December. Module 1 in year 1 we'll look at pastoral identity. It's really looking at calling, re-examining strengths, gifts, experiences in the pastor's past, so as to be able to see how that informs the way that they are pastoring today. Within a group of 5 to 8 pastors, we know that all of them are called to pastoral ministry, but that's all going to look different for each one of them. What we want to try to avoid is pastors kind of getting outside of their own pastoral identity, trying to take on the pastoral identity of another pastor who perhaps he's been fruitful or seen as being successful in another place, kind of copycatting what they've done, and yet it not fitting his own personal calling. And so we take about 5 months to examine that identity and help pastors to learn how to operate within their own pastoral identity. Following the break in the summer, we'll come back and we will take on Module 2, which deals with personal conflict resolution, specific skills that a pastor can use when a pastor is in direct conflict with a person or a party in the church, and how to resolve or mitigate those conflict issues. The materials provided by Ken Sande, the writer of The Peacemaker, and Ken has graciously provided us with this material and agreed to help be one of our field experts as we do the training with our pastors. So that's year 1. Year 2, module 1, we'll look at decision making. We're going to provide pastors a paradigm through training scenarios that will be provided each month that we'll look at, in which a pastor can learn how to and get reps at making decisions through a paradigm, through a lens, in being able to identify what kind of decisions need to be made. We'll be reading a book called Lead, Develop, Care that was authored by Terry Cook, a senior executive for Navigators for years, and has been teaching this paradigm on decision making literally around the world. And Terry has also agreed to help be one of our field experts. So we'll do that January through May of year 2. Then following the summer, the second module of year 2, we will look once again at Ken Sande material and looking at corporate conflict resolution. How can a pastor help 2 people or 2 parties work through their conflict and either mitigate or resolve that conflict so that there can be peaceful harmony and moving together forward in fulfilling the mission of the church. So we'll provide some great skills in doing that. In year 3, we're going to come back to some of our old friends. Giant Leadership Corporation does leadership development with businesses around the world. They are Oklahoma Baptist men, and several of them have been in ministry. And so not only do they do this with corporations, but they also do it with pastors and ministries. And so they have 52 leadership tools that we will be examining, that will be helping pastors to learn how to use in order to provide just great leadership in the midst of their church. For instance, we're going to talk about support challenge matrix. How much support does a person need? How much challenge do they need in their life? We'll look at different tools that will help them gain confidence in leading. The 4th year, we move to more of a model like what we had in our previous ministry pipeline, which is discussion huddles. The leaders for these discussion huddles will have a series of topics, 15 to 20 topics. They'll be able to choose 12 because we'll be meeting once a month for a year. Topics such as, how do you run a business meeting? How do you develop a budget? How do you preach a sermon for someone who's committed suicide? And they'll be able to sit down with those pastors, those young pastors, and be able to work through those material month by month as they continue on through the year. And then in year 5, we'll be simply doing a leadership reading group. They'll be given selected titles that they'll be able to choose from. The pastors will read, they'll gather together, and they'll discuss through those particular titles. So that's the content that we'll be using across the 5 years. I do want to point out by format that each one of the years has 2 modules running from January to May, August to December. If someone comes in to the area and they want to be a part of the group, they don't have to wait for the 5 years to be over to start over again. They don't even have to wait for the 1 year to be over. They can jump in at any point when a new module begins. So we on-ramp them in that way. Each one of the modules actually begins with about a 24-hour retreat. And then the following month, they have a 3-hour huddle group to discuss the material that they've been working on. And then the month after that, and alternating after that, they receive one-on-one coaching, either from one of our field experts like Ken Sandy or Terry Cook, or one of our Oklahoma Baptist staff, the seasoned pastor that runs the group, or the director of missions. I do want to point out that we want to anchor these development groups within our local Baptist associations. We wanted to have that geographical tie. And so because of that, we're going to bring in the director of missions along with a seasoned pastor from the area and group them together with 5 to 8 pastors who have been in ministry for less than 10 years, or perhaps a pastor who is looking, a student pastor or worship pastor who's looking to be a senior pastor. And we want to just continue to train them in these kind of skills, kind of like in a drip method that goes across this 5-year cycle. The old saying that I learned in the Army, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. We want to continue just to give them bite-sized chunks of leadership skills, things that they wouldn't learn in seminary, things that they didn't get anywhere else. But we have seen as potential gaps for pastors. And by giving them these skills to fill those gaps, we hope to not only strengthen them personally, but to help the tenure of their ministry to be longer and more fruitful, and thereby even producing stronger churches. So this is the 5-year plan. And we hope to be able to help develop stronger, more fruitful pastors.